Today I will read a few verses from another stuti. When the goddess mother killed Mahishasura, a demon who took the form of a buffalo, because he was a great terror for all the gods, all the devatas. So when Devi or mother destroyed him, killed him, all devatas were extremely happy and they praised her. Very beautiful stuti or hymn in that. There are very beautiful verses in that. One famous verse is, "Who are you? Ya Shri Swam Sukrutinam Bhavaneshu." You are the Shri, the fortune, dwelling in the houses of the virtuous. So this goddess comes to Sukrutinam, those people who perform satkarma, virtuous deeds. In their homes, the mother or goddess comes as Shri or fortune. Same goddess comes for the vicious. So vicious people also get wealth. In the vicious, she comes as ill fortune. The idea is that the means through which you get your fortune is very important. Sometimes we envy people who make a lot of money by compromising values. But the same wealth or Lakshmi comes as ill fortune, meaning that it is not enough that you have the wealth. Important is whether you can enjoy that wealth or not. Is that wealth going to be a blessing or a curse? Wealth can be blessing, wealth can be curse. If wealth is acquired by fair or virtuous means, then that wealth is called Lakshmi. That is mother goddess, that is Lakshmi. And she comes as fortune. On the other hand, the same wealth acquired through evil means comes as bad luck or as a curse. So she blesses also, she punishes also. She blesses those who follow dharma or righteousness in their life. And she punishes those who compromise those values. Krutadhyam hrideshu buddhi. Of the people who are learned, you come as intelligence. So those who are learned, and again those who are virtuous in them, O mother, you come as buddhi or as intelligence. Shraddha satam. Sat means the people who are good, noble people. In the hearts of noble people, you appear as Shraddha, as faith or the trust. Kulajanam prabhasya lajja. Come as modesty. In the hearts of those who are born in noble families, you come as lajja or modesty. So, Devi such as you, we are surrender you. Please protect us. Please protect the universe. The same Devi manifests in different forms. She is the Saraswati, the goddess of learning. She is Durga, the protector and destroyer of the evil. She is Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. And she is also Parvati or Gauri, who is the consort of Lord Shiva. So she is the consort of Brahma, Saraswati, consort of Vishnu, Lakshmi, consort of Shiva, that is Durga or Parvati, and she is also Medha, the intelligence. So Medha si Devi Vidita Khila Shastra Sara. Hey Devi, you are Medha or the intellect. Medha means intellect, the power of grasping, the power of retaining, the intelligence, the learning, the knowledge. So you are the Medha by which people learn the scriptures. So the power to comprehend the scriptures comes because of his Medha, comes because of his goddess, mother. So it is due to the mother goddess that we are able to learn the scriptures, because she comes as Medha or as very intelligence. So she appears in us as very intelligence, because of which we comprehend the learning of the scriptures. Durga si Durga Bhavasagra Navra Sangha. So you are the Durga. What does Durga do? So Durga Sagar. Durga means obstacle. Durga means the one who removes the obstacles. So this samsara is compared to the ocean with many obstacles. So samsara is extremely difficult to cross. Therefore, this goddess comes as Durga, as the destroyer of all the obstacles. She becomes the very boat with which we cross the ocean of samsara. So you are the Durga, because of which, or because of whom, we cross the ocean of samsara. You are the Medha, the Saraswati, the intelligence, because of which we are able to learn all the scriptures. Shri, you are Shri or Lakshmi, Kaitavhari, Hridaya Divasa. So, what is the abode of Lakshmi, The chest of Lord Vishnu is the very abode of Lakshmi. So, or heart of the Vishnu, you can say. So, Lakshmi is always shown as residing in the very chest. So, this is called the Shri Vatsa. So, Lord Vishnu carries on his bosom a mark which is where Lakshmi resides. So, what happened is, once upon a time, there was an assembly of all rishis, and there was a debate as to who is the greatest of the three gods. There is Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Rudra the destroyer. Of the three, who is the highest? They could not come to any conclusion. So therefore, they appointed sage Bhrigu to go and find out who is the most exalted of them. So sage Bhrigu goes to these deities one by one. First, he goes to Brahma.
Swamiji, I want to ask anybody here if anybody knows that story.
Yeah, I know.
Not you. You don't come to the temple.
He is the son of Brahma. So Brahma is the creator. He goes to the court of his own father. Brahma is seated on the throne. Goddess Saraswati is sitting in front of him. She is playing on the lute, and Brahma is listening with total attention. So Bhrigu enters, and he starts shouting at Brahmaji's father. So what is this? You are all the time absorbed and reveling only in Saraswati, in your consort? That's not the way God is supposed to be. He insults Brahma. Brahma becomes so angry that he gets up and he wants to punish him. Fortunately, Saraswati comes in the way and prevents Brahma from punishing Bhrigu. Bhrigu walks away. Then goes to Lord Shiva. His brother of Lord Shiva. So Lord Rudra also is son of Brahma. They are all Puranic stories. Where Rudra, the destroyer, is said to be born of the forehead of Brahma. So by one relationship, Rudra is the son of Brahma. And Bhrigu also is son of Brahma. One of the 7 rishis who are born, the mental, from the mind of Brahma. So then Bhrigu is a brother of Shiva. So when he goes to Lord Shiva stands up, gets up to welcome him, to hug him, embrace him. Oh my brother, come, hey, stay away from me. You are impure. You have this ashes from your funeral pyre. You have these snakes on your body. You are impure. Don't touch me. And Lord Shiva is so upset, he takes his trident and is going to attack him. That fortunately Parvati stops him. Says, oh, he's your brother, please stop. Walks away. Then goes to Lord Vishnu. Now Lord Vishnu is lying on his serpent bed in the milky ocean. He is always half asleep in meditation. So Saint Bhrigu goes to him because Lord Vishnu is in meditation, therefore he does not make a note of arrival of Bhrigu. So Bhrigu gets upset. He kicks, says, hey, you're so arrogant? Don't you realize that I've come here to meet you? You don't even have the courtesy of getting up and welcoming me? And kicks him in his chest. And Lord Vishnu gets, opens his eyes, holds his foot. I'm very sorry that I failed to welcome you. And when you kicked, my chest is very hard. Your foot is so delicate. I'm sorry that it must be hurt. He started caressing his foot. Please pardon me. So Bhrigu declared that he is the best of the devatas. Other two devatas, he was able to incite their passion and they provoked them. Lord Vishnu did not get provoked in spite of being ill-treated in this manner. That's how Vishnu was declared as the best of all the three. From then on, in fact, Lord Vishnu says, I will always remember you, you have your memory that you visited me. So because of that kick, there was a scar on his chest and he always preserves that scar. So one of the ornaments, when you read here the description of either Lord Vishnu or incarnation of Vishnu, as Lord Krishna and Rama, that scar is always there. That is where Lakshmi resides. Because Shri is the daughter of Bhrigu and he offered as a result Shri to Lord Vishnu. So Shri resides here. So Shri Kaitavari Hudayekal Krutadivasa, O Mother Goddess, you are the Shri, you are the Lakshmi, the Goddess of Fortune, and you have taken your abode in the heart of Lord Vishnu. Gauri Tvameva Shashimoli Krita Pratishtha. You are the Gauri. So you are the Medha, the Saraswati, because of whom we are able to learn all the scriptures. You are the Durga, who removes all the obstacles in crossing the ocean of samsara. You are the Shri, the goddess of fortune, who always resides in the heart of Lord Narayana. Therefore, Swami Chinmayan Bada Swami used to say that people foolishly worship Lakshmi. Lakshmi comes, but then she is Chanchalam. She is, therefore Chanchalam means what? She is very restless, very unsteady. So she comes, but she goes back to Narayana because that's where she belongs. So better you worship Narayana, Lakshmi will automatically come because she resides in the heart of Lord Vishnu.
Is it that's why Tirupati has so much money?
Yeah. See, Tirupati, because Adi Shankaracharya went there. It is said that Adi Shankaracharya went to Tirupati and has installed a Janakarshana yantra. A yantra, Janakarshana, which will attract all the devotees. It is said that he visited all important temples and did a lot of things, a lot of reform in the worship methods and things. He went to Guruvayur, which is in Kerala.
Guruvayur.
And there he installed the Dhanakarshana, yantra by which he attracts wealth. Because he knows that for maintaining these temples you require this. So, but that's why wherever Lord Vishnu is, Lakshmi comes.
We have to get one of the Dhanakarshana.
I could see the wheels rolling in
I Swamiji, he inaugurated our temple.
Nah.
He laid a cornerstone for our temple. Then he came back and he inaugurated the temple. As far as I'm concerned, that is Dhanakarshan.
Yeah.
And that is why...
So Janakarshan, Dhanakarshan, both is there.
Both. So he came and he did when installation of the Murti, you weren't here the other time. And he brought something from South India, those kalash and everything.
Yeah. Of different tirtha. Yeah.
And he brought also this thing he put on in the Murti. They put the Murti on top of it, the yantra. Yantra. He brought all the yantras. Shiva, Durga, everything he brought himself. So we were very fortunate to have that.
And you are Gauri. Gauri means Parvati, who has established herself with Shiva. So how close, Saraswati sits before Brahma. Lakshmi is right in the heart of Vishnu. But Gauri or Parvati is very half of Lord Shiva, She occupies, Ardhanarishwara. I mean half Parvati, half Shiva. The right side is Lord Shiva, left side is Parvati. And there is one verse in Shiva Mahimna Stotra where this Mahimna Stotra is composed by one great poet, one Gandharva, his name was Pushpadana. Very beautiful verses. One of the verses says, so what happened is, the very famous story of when Lord Shiva is meditating in Samadhi and the Devatas, Indra, wanted to disturb him from that Samadhi because once he goes to Samadhi, you never know when he'll come out. But Devatas are pretty selfish, they always are looking out for their self-interest.
Bad boys.
So, there is this demon, his name was Tarakasura. And nobody could defeat him. So ultimately, Brahma told Devatas that, look, if Lord Shiva has a son, he will be able to kill this Tarakasura. He will become the chief of army of the Devatas. So Lord Shiva should have a son. When can he have a son? When he gets married. When does he get married? When he wakes up from his Samadhi. So Goddess Parvati has been meditating upon Lord Shiva for a long time because she wanted to get married to Lord Shiva. So she was meditating. But here Shiva is always in Samadhi. So then, when can Devatas have their desire accomplished? When a son is born to Lord Shiva. Then he will kill Tarakasura. Son can be born if Lord Shiva gets married to Parvati. And that can happen when he wakes up from his Samadhi. And so Indra sends Cupid. He is a god of passion. He is sent with his army. And he is successful in creating some little disturbance in the mind of Lord Shiva. And he opens his eyes. Who has disturbed me from my Samadhi? And he sees there that Cupid's Kamadeva is called Kamadeva. The Cupid or the Lord of Passion. He is hiding behind the leaves of a tree and looking at him and shooting arrow at Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva wakes up, sees that Cupid and opens his third eye. Fire emerges from there and Kamadeva is burned to ashes. And Parvati watches this. So Pushpadanta says that look, O Lord is praising Lord Shiva. So when you praise one, very often you wind up in a way denigrating somebody else. Stuti or praise of one very often amounts to ninda or censure of somebody else. So he says, Pushpadanta says to Lord Shiva, so lavanya shamsa dhruta dhanushamannaya trunavat urah plustam drishtva says, Parvati thought that you accepted her because of her beauty. Even though she saw in front of her Dhruta Dhanushamannaya Trunavat, He saw that Kamadeva with his bow, he turned to ashes in a moment he saw. You know, Kamadeva means passion, meaning that Lord Shiva is simply totally free from kama or passion. That's the symbolism of Lord Shiva burning kama to ashes. Lord Shiva stands for knowledge. Where knowledge is, ignorance cannot be. And kama is the first product of ignorance, burns to ashes. So Parvati saw this kama turned to ashes in front of her. And still, so Lord Shiva in fact not only got married to Parvati, was so gracious that he gave Parvati, the goddess, the very half of his body. He had installed her there. He gave that status to her out of compassion. But look at this Parvati, she doesn't realize that. She thinks that you are in fact infatuated with her. And therefore, out of her beauty and infatuation, that you accepted her, not realizing that it is simply by your compassion that you have done. But anyway, so this is all Lord Shiva gave half place to Parvati. So goddess, you are the very Gauri or Parvati, who enjoys the very half of the Lord Shiva. So you are the Meda Saraswati, you are Durga, you are Lakshmi, you are Gauri. So in many verses like this, Mother is praised. So Mother's Day, this is how Mother is, all mothers represent, of course, that universal Mother. This is praise to universal Mother, and that universal Mother is present as a fraction in all the mothers. Every mother ultimately is this. She is Saraswati. She is Durga. She becomes Durga when it comes to protecting her sick children. She becomes Lakshmi. She takes care and provides all the care, to the family. She is the Saraswati. She is the first teacher. Mother is the first teacher. Father is the second teacher. The so-called teacher is the third teacher. Mother is the first teacher. She thus provides, imparts knowledge. So Saraswati. She protects, so Durga. She takes care, nurtures and nourishes. She is Lakshmi. All of these are manifestations of Parvati. That's what Mother is. Mother's Day.
So, can you stop and say it again?
Perfection?
Yeah, about the mothers having not given enough, feeling guilty about not taking care of them.
Yeah. That guilt is something that happens to a very sensitive person. More sensitive you are, more likely you are to feel guilty. Because more sensitive you are, more you expect from yourself. And more often than not, you always fall short of your expectation. Meaning that more often than not, you prove yourself inadequate in fulfilling your own expectation of yourself. So guilt comes. Guilt is a result of my not being able to meet with my own expectation. So every human being has expectation of himself or herself as to what I should be. And we feel guilty when we are not able to meet with those expectations. So more sensitive you are, greater expectations you have. And therefore, more likely it is that you will feel guilty. So here is the daughter who feels very guilty that I did not do enough for my mother. My mother did so much for me. That shows the sensitivity. It is because of sensitivity that the daughter realizes what all mother has done. There is naturally, along with love, a great sense of gratitude. And you want to do equally for her. It is not possible. Nobody can replicate mother. We can never do what mother has done for us, never. A child, you can do that to your child, but you can never pay back to what your mother has done. So a child always feels inadequate as far as doing, returning the favor to the mother. So when the mother passes away, the daughter remembers what all mother has done for me and looks at herself and how little I have done or I have not done anything. In fact, that's how you feel. You have not done anything. Not only you have not done anything, you have done all negative things. See, you not only loved her, you have not loved her, you hated her. You disrespected her. So this is how you judge yourself, out of your own sensitivity. And you feel guilty. So, when a person dear or near or dear one passes away, there are different kinds of pain. One is the pain of the loss of the dear one, which is a reality. There is nothing you can do. You have to just go through that. But apart from that, in most people also, there is a pain coming from guilt. Different ways the children think. We see we didn't go to that doctor. I wish we had gone to that doctor. I wish we had gone to that hospital. I wish that night we had done this. I wish we had administered this medicine. I wish we had done this, etc., etc. They always feel that they could have done it differently. Had they done it differently, maybe this person would not have passed away, or this would not have happened to her. Very common feeling. So we tell them that look, the pain that you suffer on account of loss of a loved one is a pain that you have to go through. We can't say that, all become a Vedantin and say, no, everybody comes and everybody goes. That kind of thing doesn't work. Meaning that this intelligent or Vedantic stuff does not work when it comes to these emotions. And therefore we have to always respect the emotions of people, to validate them and help them go through that pain. But at the same time, if you find that the person also additionally suffers from a sense of guilt, now that cannot be validated because guilt is not a genuine feeling. The fact that you are sensitive means that you must have done the best you could do. But it's never adequate. You always feel that you are inadequate. But I'm sure that you must have done the best you could do. It's a fact that you are not omniscient, you are not all-knowing. In the hindsight, you may discover that, I should have done a given thing instead of that thing. But when you did that thing, that's the best you knew how to do. So, we expect from ourselves that we should be all-knowing, I should know everything, and I should do everything right. That's not possible. I expect myself to be all-powerful, be able to do everything. Not possible. So we are limited in our knowledge, limited in capability. So we cannot expect ourselves to always do right thing, to be always able to do what is required to be done. And so we should also acknowledge that limitation that we have and not punish. So guilt is punishing myself, feeling guilt, bashing myself, punishing myself, which is not fair to myself. Therefore, just as we should have compassion for others, we should also have compassion for ourselves. Inasmuch as I should acknowledge my limitation. Acknowledge that I have limited knowledge, limited power, limited capacity. So regardless of how best I do, it is going to be limited. It's never going to be perfect. With that, we should also acknowledge our limitation and be compassionate to ourselves, so that we can stay free from the sense of guilt. Because that's a big pain. That will never go. The person's pain of the separation may perhaps reduce in course of time, but the guilt will ever remain. So the guilt has to be treated in this manner and become free from guilt. Then you are available to go through the real pain which is there, which in course of time also the time will take care of. Okay?